Okay, so I'm gonna ask you to start by closing your eyes or just kind of going inward and starting to contemplate your life right now, looking at it from a higher perspective, maybe like a movie, and just notice yourself. Just look down at your life, look down at this day, look down at this weekend, and just recently in your life, and kind of look at your life as if it was in third person looking down at yourself. You're looking at the situations you've been in, the thoughts that you've had. You just notice, the circumstances at hand, the worries, the thoughts, the concerns, the fears, the trials, the setbacks. You just take a good glimpse and you kind of look at yourself and notice the tension in the body and the feelings that arise, where they tend to sit in the body, kind of the facial remarks that could have been had. And you just watch this character that seems to be you. And as you get a glimpse, you think, who is this person? You can answer to yourself. You might say your name. You begin to wonder, who is that person? Who is that name? You start to go deeper into, what is that? Is that a thought? Well, what is that thought? That name, what is that? Who is this whole thing that I seem to be in this world? And as you contemplate, you go deeper and deeper, and then you realize it's hard to explain. There really are no words. It's just this beingness. And as you watch from this beingness, you notice this character living this life. There's just this awe. It's very hard to put into words because it's beyond words. So you can open your eyes. And that's just a simple form of self-inquiry, starting to look at ourselves beyond our first point of view from our own eyes and looking from a distance, looking onward and from a third party or from a third point of view, and starting to notice that we're more like characters. Shakespeare says that we're characters inside of this infinite play. From the dawn of time, people have been asking, who are we? What is this? In Greece, in the Apollo, the temple of Apollo is inscripted the words, know thyself, and also know your limits. From the dawn of time, we've all wanted to understand, what is it? And so people have been personifying and asking, what is this body made of? We've gone through science and we've gone through scriptures and we've been trying to understand, what is this? What is my relationship to this world and my relationship to animals and nature and to each other? And so we've looked for all the ways in which we were separate and different and materialized outside of this world. And then we started to know as we have personalities and thoughts, and we've looked to personify ourselves through astrology and through personality and through all the different ways that we can confine ourselves and individualize ourselves as a person. And so we put these labels and we do these things to personify ourselves. And when that's not enough, we break it down even more and we try to find these very specific labels to say, my job is like this, and my gender's like this, and my relationship to people is like this. And now we've been left at this point where, like, it's complicated. It's become hard to put into words what exactly we are, because the truth is, we are beyond words. We don't fit inside words. There's no way to break us down inside of these compartmentalized thoughts we call words and labels and meanings, because we're beyond that. We are divine. We are beyond the capacity to even understand what even divine means, because even that is a word that puts limitation on the entirety of what we really are. And how do we know we're divine? Be still. Get outside of any confines of words. Shamans have been taking people through rites of passages and putting them inside of nature, going on a spirit quest for days, getting them outside of everything that's familiar, getting them outside of their thoughts, getting them outside of human contact and words to understand the stillness and the connection to all things. We know we're divine when we get silent, when we get still. The ultimate truth is our stillness and our silence. It's untouchable. It can't be hurt. It can't be destroyed, because it's just one thing. It has no beginning and it has no end. In truth, we were never born and will never die. A Course in Miracles says that nothing is real, nothing real can be threatened, and nothing unreal exists. Here lies the peace of God. The truth is that what is real is our divinity. Everything unreal can be hurt. It ultimately changes. It ultimately had a birth and it'll have a death. Everything we see in this material world is threatened because it's temporal, because it's unreal. It all breaks, it all falls apart, and it all dies. Every last bit in this dream. This dream is made of thought. It's a hallucination of the mind. And when we get beyond those thoughts, when we get beyond this material world, we can't be threatened. So nothing out here poses threat when we come back into our divinity. The caterpillar who seeks to know himself will never become a butterfly. We can't know ourselves within this dream. We can't know ourselves at the thought and dream level. We can only know ourselves by getting outside of it. And so it's important to take moments to do self-inquiry and ask, who is it that has this thought? And who is that person that thought that thought? And who is that? And when we get to that place of silence, there's a truth. So no matter what's going on, we can come back to that truth and just watch from a place of awareness. Life will always give us something to challenge us because it's a dualistic nature. There will always be perceived threats in the world of the illusion. It feels that the character that we play is always in defense of what's happening out here, because in the world of duality, there's birth and death. And so the character is constantly in defense of, don't offend me, don't hurt me, whether it's on the most tangible, material, physical level, or it's a conceptual thought and it's on the ego or personal level. we're constantly in defense of, don't hurt me, don't make me look bad, don't humiliate me. And so the ego is constantly in threat and in survival of this dream. And the way out of that survival and into ultimate bliss and peace is to step outside of it and to watch it. And from the divine point of view, we have nothing that we actually even have to do to be in protection of. One of my favorite authors, teachers is Robert Adams, who teaches, be still and do nothing. Quit reacting to the dream, even if it appears your life is on the line. You don't have to do very much about life. Life will start taking care of you. And so I've tested the waters with that. I, Candace, living inside of this world, have had a lot of perceived threats and a lot of things that have come at me that seem like my life is on the line. And I've decided to start testing that and noticing, to start testing that and seeing, will the divine in me take care of the perceived Candace in this world? And I stopped reacting when somebody had an insult and stopped being in defense of, do I need to protect myself from that lie that was told? Or the fact that somebody stole money, do I need to protect myself from that? Do I need to protect myself from not having enough perceived money for tomorrow? And so I wanted to play with that and see, do I need to protect this perceived character that I think myself to be? And as I've started to sit back in awareness and stop being in so much protection of the character, I've noticed the divine, the superior, the supreme intelligence starts taking care of what's perceived on the screen of my so-called life. And so through the last year, I can absolutely say that the divine has taken care of me, the character, every step of the way when major losses were perceived to be in my life. God took care of everything by staying and abiding in the self and not touching, not reacting, not protecting the perceived threats. Just as of recently, it appeared that some very unfair things came my way to Candace, the character. And habitually, I've wanted to respond. I've wanted to react. I wanted to throw punches or just, protect the truth. And I felt like I had something that needed to be said in order to make Candace look right and to be fair to what I perceive myself to be. But this time I thought, you know what? I'm gonna really abide in the self and not protect and see what that does. And instead just live in the truth and the light that I cannot be harmed. And what happened was I couldn't be harmed. There was nothing to have lost. I gained a beautiful day by remaining in truth and not reacting to the situation or the perceived attack, and instead gave love to the person that would insult and would perceive to attack me, instead of giving in to trying to protect and opening up a whole can of worms. I just diffused it by not giving into it and decided that the truth of who I am, can't be insulted. It can't be taken advantage of. It can't be harmed. And so I find ultimate bliss and ultimate security by remaining in this. And as soon as I get back into being the Candace, then I'm back to having problems. I live in the world of duality where I'm constantly having to survive and protect and justify and figure my way out in order to solve the problem. I'm constantly in defense of, don't say that to me, or don't hurt me, or, overly being cautious or concerned about, will I have enough tomorrow? And so it's awful. It's hell. It's constant survival mode. It's walking out and feeling like I'm in a minefield. Every moment of my life is someone gonna bother me while I'm trying to walk my dog, or someone gonna insult me, is someone not gonna like me, is, you know, is our business gonna fail again? Is this gonna happen? Is that? And it's awful. It's turmoil. It's absolutely everything that is outside of the presence of God. The way I see it is, it's like a dark cloud. All these feelings and all these threats are like dark clouds, and we're constantly trying to avoid them, and we're constantly dodging them, and they're coming through, and they're like storms, and we're just constantly trying to find shelter and trying to run from the rain, and then it becomes a hurricane. We're trying to constantly find shelter, and it's awful. But the way out is, remember, we're the sun, the eternal sun of light. And we can sit there and we can welcome the clouds and the storms. No matter how bad it gets, we can welcome it and know that it too will pass. It will not last forever. And eventually, as we welcome and open ourselves up to these storms and realize that these storms can never put out the eternal light that we are, these storms burn up. They start burning up, and in fact, we start to enjoy them. Instead of dodging it, we're out there doing a rain dance. We're celebrating the rain, or maybe we're just getting cozy and put on a fire and pull out a hot chocolate, and we enjoy the storms. We enjoy the insult, and instead of being hurt by that person, we look at them with love, and we realize that they actually, on the deepest level, meant it in love, that they're actually calling for love instead of actually trying to hurt us. And we can turn those situations and we can transform into something of peace, of divinity. We can look at any sort of attack and say, you know what, that was actually for my greatest good, trying to push me towards my greatest love. You can look at a car accident, a diagnosis, a setback, bankruptcy, homelessness, all of it. We can turn it around from the view of God and see that everything was actually trying to steer us back to that point of view. And so we cannot be hurt. We cannot be tortured in any sort of way when we sit in the seat of God. Michael Singer, one of my favorite authors and teachers, also says, when you really understand who you are, you will experience unalloyed happiness. Happiness you can only dream about. Happiness in the silence when nothing is happening, but you're just happy, always at peace. All the gods you've been praying to all of your life, all of the Buddhas, Krishnas, Shivas, Christ, Allahs, they are all within you. You are all of that. There is only one self. You are that. Ponder this. And so when we're looking for help, we're perceiving ourselves to be human, to be limited, to be smaller. And there's nothing wrong with that. We've been conditioned to believe that. But everything, and I mean everything in our life, is pointing us back to remembering our divinity, our eternal sun. And so whatever's coming in each moment is an invitation to love and be present to that moment, or to get back to that. It's a cry for love. And it's asking us to give more love to that moment, because this is eternal love. Whether you want to call yourself the universe, God, or even the child of God, you are that. And that is where ultimate peace and bliss and love and joy will come from. And it's true. You can have unalloyed peace in those places, and absolutely everything in your life can turn around and be an absolute blessing. There is nothing to be afraid of. There is no thing in this world that can harm us. no war, no terror, no word, no genocide, no attack is bigger than us. Those are all of this dream. Those are only for a mere moment. The body can be hurt, the body can die, but the spirit is eternal. And once again, we know this when we go into the stillness and the silence and the listening of the present moment. And it's so beautiful that the truth is in silence, because humans have taken words and made them to mean so many different things. So the ultimate truth would be beyond what humans have done to a word, to a symbol. I always think it's amazing when we get really still and silent, nature really shows up. My dog is a teacher of this. I'll go chase her to hold her and to play with her, and she'll run from me. But if I want her to actually come to me, the best thing I can do is be still and sit down. Instead of chasing her and looking for love, if I just sit down and just be still, ultimately she'll just always come and sit in my lap, wants to be by my side. If we want the ultimate love, it's usually just a matter of just sit down and be still. Sit in the divinity of who we are, and everything starts coming to us. It's in the silence that we're made free. And it doesn't mean that we have to always sit on a cushion and be meditating, but we can make a practice of doing our dishes or driving in the car or doing our work and silencing our mind, stilling our mind and just enjoying the present moment. And that puts us in a place of divinity and peace.
Are you taking questions, or you'll have that soon? Okay.
One of my favorite quotes I've ever heard in my life comes from the Oracle in the Matrix. And she talks to Neo, and she points at a sign over the door of her kitchen, and she goes, "Do you know what that means?" He's like, "No." And she goes, "That means know thyself." Same words that are in the temple of the Apollo. And she goes, "Do you know how to know yourself?" He's like, "I don't know." And she goes, "It's just like falling in love. You'll just know. It's balls to bones. You just know. You know you're the one. It's just right there." And as soon as Neo remembered that he was the one, Smith couldn't take him down. Nothing could take him down. He was able just to stand there, and didn't matter how many attacks, he just became so still and was able to take all the bullets. And it started to become even boring to him to fight. He realized he couldn't be taken down. All he had to do is know himself. And that's what's true of us. You have a question?
Yeah, I'm wondering, I think like depending on the audience, obviously I'm around all of this a lot, and so I hear all of the different vernacular. but you use a lot of words like divine and God, um, and there's this, there's this sort of like, I guess perhaps it's because I'm a guy and I like logic, but there's this sort of wanting or desire to have some sort of like explanation or proof, or like how can you help to explain and or make more real for me as a person what it is that you're talking about. And like, I guess like if there's an exercise or something, I really like what you just said, that you just know. But I think for people who are caught in thoughts of, but I don't know, I don't get it, this doesn't make sense to me. What kind of advice would you offer to them? Like, is there something that they can do to get a better sense of this, to understand what divine means, or to understand how to
So
find
let me
themselves?
ask you, what does divine mean to you?
Well, divine to me means it's something of like kind of like holy quality. Like it's of like the utmost quality. It's kind of unrivaled quality would be how I would understand, is how I understand divine.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because the holy, we think of holy, 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 but then also whole with a W. It's whole and complete. It's perfect. It's made to perfection. And that's what you are. There's nothing you can do to ever be outside of that.
And so of course I'm kind of playing devil's advocate because I know, but like, what if I don't feel that like that? I mean, I don't always feel perfect. I don't always feel whole. In fact, quite often I don't.
The character is not. The character is flimsy. The character dies. The character is constantly in protection of itself. The character does things that it deems sinful or wrong and feels guilty or shameful of. The character is constantly trying to preserve and look good and be okay. And it's the identification with the character that creates suffering. You think that the body is who you are. But when you get outside of that and stop identifying with the body and the character, you live into your divinity, your wholeness, your perfection, your completeness. You don't have to protect anymore. And so the way to start doing that is, one way is through self-inquiry. To start going from into that view from the third person and start looking at your life from a different point of view of God, and start looking at the character and remembering the character isn't real. It's an avatar. It's a doll. It's like a Sims character. It's like a video game. It's like any kind of character in a movie or any kind of thing where it's not real and you're just watching it.
But I guess, I don't, it's like I understand the exercise you took us through at the beginning where we're imagining looking down on our life from third person or from the bird's eye view, God's eye view is what you're saying. Um, but that feels almost to me like that's just something I'm imagining from this body using my brain. And so I'm wondering like, uh, is there something or a way that you can help me to see or experience that I'm not this body and this brain?
So this is a lesson I learned from Ramana Maharshi. And for some people, it requires a process. Some people get in an instant and some people need a process. And for some people, it's not enough to rationally tell them they're divine, they're going to need a process and they're going to have to go through their own sort of flowering to this. But Rana Maharshi says there's some people that they're not logically allowing themselves to get it. And so he says, what is God? What is God to you?
Well, I mean, I guess God to me is that which whether it's a being or an entity or a force of some sort that is responsible for the creation of all of this.
So he says, and I'm going to encourage you to do the same. Ponder that day after day after day. Keep pondering, what is God? Ask yourself, what is God? Over and over. When you find yourself wandering, come back to, what is God?
Well, and I suppose then if I look at, and I think this is possibly where people can be offered a bridge, but when I look at everything that is, when I look at my definition of God, that which is responsible for creating everything, and then I do what you're suggesting, what Ramana Maharshi suggests, to ponder that. At first I think I can see that I'm just going to keep coming back with the same answer. It's that which created everything. It's that which created everything. It's that which created everything. Though perhaps an opportunity presents itself to realize that everything is being known by this person, so that perhaps there's some sort of connection to God through this person. I don't know exactly. I'm curious.
Well, you have a
Maybe.
suspicion that you would keep coming to the same answer, that God is a creator, but you don't know that that's what you're going to do if you keep pondering it. As you ponder it, you're going to flower and start to realize something very special. You're going to start to realize that you and God are the same. It's a practice of pondering, putting all of your thoughts on, what is God? What is God like? What does God love? What does God do? And so when you start to put all of your thoughts on what is God, the rest solves itself. You need nothing else. There's only one focus in this life, and it'll solve everything for you. If there's anything to ever learn in this life, it's you are divine and you are connected to God, and everything else from that place will solve itself. But ponder it, deeply ponder it, and let the answers start flowering and start appearing. And I guarantee you, what you think you know now will be different later. It's going to flower. It'll leave you in awe, it'll leave you in ecstasy, and it will take care of you. A lot of these concepts can't entirely be rationalized because they're beyond thought. It takes sitting back outside of thought. It takes silence to fully grasp it. And you can't fully grasp it, but it takes sitting, being still, being present, to start to conceptualize the vastness of what we are. Overthinking about it will send you on a spiral. It's like a labyrinth. You'll just get lost in it because it's beyond thought. It's beyond the human mind. The human mind is limited. It knows limitation. It knows beginning and end. And so it can't fully conceptualize something that has no beginning or end. It wants to know how it's going to go, what it all means. And so you have to get outside of conceptualization to fully grasp the entirety of nirvana and bliss. So, as this class is titled, Learning to Surf Life's Biggest Waves, the way to surf and enjoy life and to get back through any trial is to stop thinking with the rational mind and to be with it, to be in the stillness of the moment, to accept the waves, and to know that no matter how deep that ocean might be, you can never drown in it because you are God. You are the creator of that ocean. And so you can never die inside of that ocean. You'll get thrown around and you can get lost in that ocean and it can take you miles away from your board. But as long as you're earnest in this pursuit of knowing oneself, it'll get you right back up. And the bliss is in sitting back and just trusting and understanding that it's beyond logic.
But I mean, people die every day. So,
People die, but God doesn't.
okay.
Again, the body can get hurt, but who you are doesn't. People are tortured emotionally, physically, spiritually, they're tortured. But that's not who you are. Your bliss will never come through the human. Bliss is beyond words. It's beyond the limitations and the confines of the body. You have to go beyond. And so self-inquiry, meditation, stillness, zoning out on a plant, listening to high frequency music, something that just gets you outside of your thoughts. Learning to still the mind is how you will get back on that surfboard and ride the wave no matter what the screen shows on it. No matter if you're sitting in a hospital room with cancer, or if your house is going up in flames, or somebody called you an awful name and accused you of doing something horrendous to your family. It doesn't matter what's going out here. You can abide in the self and come back to bliss by sitting still and remembering that you are beyond all of that. Now, you can use words like I'm using words to lead to this, but ultimately the truth is beyond words. And the ultimate peace and the ultimate way to ride the waves of life is to get behind it, to get above it, to see it all as just this grand game, this grand show. Like I said, Shakespeare says we're just these actors inside of the most grand play. We thought we were the actors, but really we are the God who put the whole production on. We're watching, we're all the parts of it. But the way to bliss is to sit back and remember it's just a movie. The beginning and end have already been predestined, so there's nothing for you to do. And the best news is you can't drown. So you may as well get back up on that board and enjoy the ride. Have fun. Start surfing the waves and enjoy, like, hey, I don't know how I'm going to pay rent this month. But boy, I'm just going to sit back in the seat of awareness and let God take me on the most epic journey. Geez, my partner really hates me right now. I don't know how we're going to figure this one out. They seem to really be upset. How am I going to ride that wave? You abide in the self and you sit back and you're like, I'm just going to be in the seat of love. I'm not going to do anything, but I'm just going to emanate love and see what love does. And you just sit there and watch the movie unfold from the seat of love, of non-protection. And you just let love take care of you.
You know, I'm playing devil's advocate again here, but it sounds like, you know, like you're just sort of shirking your responsibility. It sounds like, you know, you can't just like, what, you're just supposed to sit down and be quiet in the middle of the argument with your partner, or what, are you just supposed to just ignore your bills and just hope that God's gonna take care of them? Like, how does what you're suggesting or saying actually work? Because it seems to me like more of a kind of disregarding or avoiding of life.
That's a great question, but this comes back to why I said, Ramana Maharshi, what is God? What would God do in those moments? What is the most loving thing God could do in those moments? If God had the money to pay the bills, God would pay those bills.
But if God doesn't, then God, I mean, I think this is the part that what I'm asking for you to try to offer to me as a listener is, um, like, I don't know myself as God, so my mind knows myself that, like, if God doesn't have the
So,
money to pay the bills, I'm gonna go out and try to get a job and figure out, or borrow the money or do whatever I have to get the bills
and
paid.
there's nothing you can do that's wrong. There's nothing you can ever do that's incomplete or wrong. It's only the judgment from the human mind that thinks so. But contemplate on what God is, contemplate on what love is, and let that be the answer that leads you through every moment. If the most loving thing is to get a job and to take care of yourself that way, then do it. If the most loving thing is to sit back and just listen to your partner while they're upset, do it. But watch the defenses, watch the need to protect, watch the need to do something that feels misaligned. Watch the fear come up and start not reacting to the fears that come up in any situation, and start asking, what would love, what would God, what would the divine in me do in these situations? If you can't see yourself as the divine, just the highest thing is, what would peace do in this? What would bliss look like in this situation? How can I come from this moment steady and in peace and non-defensive? How can I come at this situation with gentleness, kindness? How can I come as the most warm, loving sun? I'm the sun, and all these situations are just the clouds. How can I come at it with an exuberant amount of light? How can I offer my partner, my bills, my life, the things that perceive to be me? How can I offer them the most amount of bliss and love and gentleness and peace? The attributes of God, the attributes of who I am as the divine.
That's helpful.
Is there any more questions?
Can you talk a little bit about how, or explain how and why the human is incomplete, but what you're saying, I guess, is that God is, or the divine is complete?
Why it is as such?
Yeah, or how you know that?
Well, from childhood, we learn that we die and that we were born. And it's instilled in us constantly through all the ways of media and stories and communications of sorts that we need to be in protection of ourselves because one day we're going to die of something. So the human's got that pounded in its mind continually. But like I said, humans have, as we've known it from the dawn of time, have wanted to know, who am I? Is this what I'm left with? Is that I'm going to build a life, I have to survive it, and then I die? Humans from the dawn of time have sought the stars, and they've sought all sorts of mysticism and spirituality, looking for who am I inside of this world and what am I inside of this world. And every single culture, every single, pot of anywhere that there's been humans, there's been people trying to figure out what they came here for, what the purpose of their life is, what it all means. How do I survive this thing? How do I make it better? How can I rearrange this to have peace? If I manipulate it like this, if we change that, maybe we'll make it better and we'll make ourselves last longer. So the human's very aware of its duality, its dualistic nature, very young.
Duality in this case meaning that like,
I'm separate.
okay,
I'm separate from everything outside of this. And I'm even separate from my body, because even my body can attack me. My own body can have forces against me. So we're in defense of our own bodies even. We're defensive with our own thoughts. We know our thoughts can make us crazy. Our own thoughts can send us off the deep end. So we're in defense of everything, literally everything. But people have looked to go beyond that. And they've searched for deeper meanings. And so every culture and every society has looked beyond and gone to the stars and gone to astrology or personality tests or gone to all the different ways. And ultimately, the highest truth is when people get very silent and still. The Bible says this. The Buddha says this. All the greatest teachers have all said, when you get still, be still and know. You will know the ultimate truth.
is it related to awareness? Is that what?
Right. When you stop and get silent and aware, you can use consciousness, you can use whatever word you like, spirit, Holy Spirit. When you get still and you earnestly want to know yourself, the answers will come. Sometimes they come as a feeling, sometimes they are conceptual. But it takes being willing to get outside of what you've known to know the known. The ego wants to hold on so tight to this is who I am that it makes it more complicated than it really is. But when we get still and we get honest and we have an earnest approach, we can know ourselves quite easily. The truth is just right there. It's felt. It's known. It's like falling in love. You just know. And it might slip away and you just do the practice again and again, and it starts to be muscle memory again and again. And you might build in mantras or affirmations to remind yourself, to point yourself back to the ultimate truth that I am the eternal, divine, infinite being of awareness, whatever you want to call it. I am the sun that can never burn out. And while life has these clouds and these storms passing by, I am this. I am this. I cannot drown when those waves come toppling over me. The ego makes it far more complicated. But the truth is so simple. Be still and know that I am God. Buddha eventually sat his butt down and meditated. And eventually he had all these attackers coming on him and throwing their arrows at him. And he was in such a divine awareness of himself, knowing that he was enlightened, that nothing of this world could touch him. That when those arrows came at him, He turned them into flowers. It was just pure bliss. It was a joy. It was a delight to meet his enemy with love. Nothing of this world can harm us. We can meet it with love because that is who we are. It's in us from childhood. Our most natural behavior is to want to give love. We learn to not give love, but the love is naturally, innately in us. It's right there. We learn as humans to protect ourselves. And it's usually through words and through actions, but it's in the beingness that we naturally are happy and we're in bliss and we want to give love and we feel connected to all things. And so really it's a going back to the beginning. We're unlearning all the things that made us feel like we were separate from one another, from ourselves, from life, from objects. And we're just going back to a place of beingness. The rational mind wants to complicate this, but it's not complicated. The ego wants to make it so much harder than it is, but it's not hard. It is an unraveling. It is an unlearning. For some, it is a practice. But we can have bliss right now. In this holy instant, we can have bliss right now. We can get right back on that surfboard right now in a holy instant by being still and knowing that we are that eternal light that cannot die. There is no force in this world. There is no person of this world. There is no thought in this world that can ever take us down. If there's any other questions, I'll take them now or else I'll wrap it up. Oh, thank you, Sean. I appreciate that. So I'll wrap it up with this. You are ultimate reality. In reality, I'm a sidebar. So reality is what is real, the thing that can't be touched. Have no doubt, the self is not something known by the mind. The self is the very one who knows. How then could you think to know the self? Lord Data Reva. Just going to leave with one of the most famous Bible verses. Just be still and know that I am God. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate this. This is such a joy. The divine in me sees the divine in you and the divine in all. All is well. Have a beautiful day. Thank you. I'll be here again tomorrow at 3:00 p.m. Pacific time. And I am going over the 5 pillars of nirvana. Each day I will be teaching different points, all that interconnect. Each point, like the Olympic rings or like a star, they all point to one thing, the ultimate truth. But these are all different pillars of truth that I'll be teaching in this course over the next 5 days. And I appreciate all that are watching and listening. I am open to any comments or feedback, any questions. And I just appreciate all that are in support of this. We are all in this together and we are all walking each other home, remembering the truth that we all are We are free here and now. We are one. So thank you. Blessed be.
Thank you.